Chapter 39. Duel in the Stone Arena. The icy mountain wind spiraled down across the Colosseum floor, sharp as an unsharpened blade. At that late hour, the sun barely managed to pierce the clouds crowning the peaks, yet the light was enough to reveal the arena's vastness. The fighting ground formed a perfect circle, wide and imposing, built from gray stone blocks, polished by centuries of combat until they nearly reflected the sky. Tier upon tier of rock stands rows like a natural amphitheater, each one packed with dwarves. Men and women, young and old, warriors clad in heavy armor, and artisans with calloused hands alike. Some watched with contained excitement, others with doubt, and some with that ancient solemnity that surfaces only when a sacred tradition is about to unfold before living eyes. Durvak Thulnar was no mere duel. It was an echo of the past, a rite invoked only when the mountain itself seemed to hold its breath. Alden felt that energy thrumming in his chest as he laid a hand on Doran's shoulder. The dwarf stood beside him, eyes fixed on the center of the arena, carrying both resolve and an inner fire. "May fortune be with you," Alden said just before the challenge began. Doran let out a dry, almost arrogant laugh, not from disdain but from sheer determination. "Fortune?" he echoed. "I don't need it. I told you before, lad, I'll be legend among dwarves and humans alike. One day they'll sing tales with my name in them, and none will speak of luck, only of strength." Alden tried to smile, though a flicker of worry crossed his face. "Just come back alive." Doran winked as if what lay ahead were nothing at all. Then he stepped forward. His boots rang against the black stone, each step firmer than the last, as though the arena itself recognized his blood, his purpose, his challenge. The crowd murmured. Some cheered him with guttural roars, others spat from the stands, others frowned, still unable to accept that a half-blood had invoked the tradition of Durvak's sons. Alden swallowed hard. Sarah moved to stand beside him. Lyanna watched without blinking. Cale clenched his jaw. Dren snorted and folded his arms. King Duran already waited at the center of the arena. Far from the throne, stripped of ceremony and the weight of rule, Duran looked like a giant carved from stone. His body was compact, dense as pure ore, his arms thick, veins like iron roots. His gray beard streamed in the wind, and his eyes, dark and deep as mountain wells, locked onto Doran from the first instant. But the most imposing sight was the hammer. The weapon rested in the king's hands as though it were an extension of his own body. Enormous, square-headed, etched with dwarven runes along its sides, its haft wrapped in dark leather. It looked far too heavy for any other dwarf, perhaps even for two. Yet Duran held it as if it were nothing more than a training mallet. Doran drew his axe. The blade caught a spark of light before vanishing back into shadow. A royal counselor stepped forward between the two warriors. He raised his hands, his voice booming through the arena. "By the ancient tradition of Durvak Thulnar, today stand in combat King Duran Hramson of Tharzul, chosen of the mountain, and Doran, son of Thurin, bearer of the blood of King Durvak. Upon whom the ancestors' favor rests shall be victorious. The one who prevails may demand of the other a single, irrevocable wish." The crowd roared as one. The counselor had barely cleared the field when the duel began. The king moved first. The hammer fell in a perfect arc, almost elegant, but with the force of an earthquake. Doran leapt back, yet the shock wave still struck him. The ground trembled, dust erupted, and a thunderous echo rolled through the arena. A chill ran down Alden's spine. Cale ground his teeth. Lyanna gasped softly. Selenia did not move. Doran landed on one knee, sliding his foot to keep his balance. He rose quickly, as he had trained his entire life to do, but surprise flashed in his eyes. That blow could have killed him outright. Still, he did not retreat. Doran surged forward, swinging his axe at the king's flank. Duran twisted the hammer with insulting ease, knocking the blade aside as if it were a dry branch. The impact shuddered up Doran's arm and into his shoulder, and he felt the dwarven strength, his father's strength, the strength he had never inherited, resonate like a ghost of what might have been. Another strike from the king, this one diagonal, faster, sharper. Doran threw himself aside, rolled across the stone, and came up with a strained breath. He barely had time to raise his weapon before the king charged again. Doran lifted his axe to block, and the impact was so brutal that the blade exploded. It did not crack, it did not splinter. It burst apart as though struck by lightning. The fragments gleamed for an instant in the air before clattering to the ground at their feet. A unified murmur rose from the stands. Doran stared at the empty haft for a heartbeat that seemed endless. Then he flung it aside. His right hand slid to his belt, then the left. Two daggers emerged, twin blades, short, curved, dark, an inheritance from Thuran, a memory of his lineage, an answer to the mountain. His eyes sharpened, his breathing slowed. The king advanced without haste, each step shaking the ground. Doran, by contrast, moved lightly, almost floating. The hammer came down. Doran spun. The shock wave kicked up a vortex of dust. Doran slipped beneath the king's arm, passed to his side, and with a perfectly timed motion, drove his elbow into the king's cheek. The strike landed cleanly. The sound carried all the way to the stands. The king staggered back. The hammer slipped from his grip for an instant, but before Doran could seize the opening, Doran's fist slammed squarely into his stomach. It felt as though a stone wall had driven through his body. Doran was hurled away, rolling across the arena, unable to breathe. The world blurred, sharp, distant, unreal. Kyle stepped forward on instinct. Alden reached out as if he could stop a blow already delivered. Lyanna frowned, tense with worry. Selenia watched with a coldness that was not indifference but certainty. Duran spat a thin line of blood. "Good strike," he growled, "but not enough." Doran forced himself upright. First one knee, then the other. At last he stood trembling, each breath like a blade in his lungs. He knew he would not survive another blow like that. His entire body agreed. But he was still standing. The king raised the hammer again, this time with both hands, as though he meant to split the arena in two. Doran saw it coming. He saw the arc. He saw the weight. He saw death. But he did not retreat. He waited. He waited. The crowd held its breath, and when the hammer fell, Doran stepped back just enough. The blow smashed into the stone mere inches from him. The shock wave tore through his body, rattled his bones, clouded his vision, but Doran held his ground. He took one step forward, then another, then another. Then he lifted his foot and planted it on the hammer, driving it deeper into the ground. The king had barely time to frown when Doran used the leverage to leap. The daggers moved at the speed of instinct, not thought. Both blades aligned at the king's throat. Doran fell backward. His back struck the arena floor, the ground shuddering beneath him, and then everything froze. Doran gasping, trembling hands, daggers a breath from the king's skin. A steady, undeniable gaze. The duel was over. For an instant, the entire arena might have been carved in stone. Then the crowd erupted. A deafening roar surged from the stands. Kyle threw up his arms, shouting Doran's name. Lyanna smiled, pride shining in her eyes. Dren remained silent. Bourne struck his chest with a fist. Sarah exhaled as though a great weight had been lifted from her heart. Alden felt his eyes burn. A rush of relief, joy, and awe. Doran had won. Doran had defeated the king of the dwarves. Doran had invoked his father's legacy and honored it. But the celebration lasted only a heartbeat. A deep, ancient sound tore through the air, so old it seemed born of the mountain itself. It was not a ceremonial horn. It was not a royal proclamation. It was an alarm, a call to war. Alden felt ice seize his bones. Cal turned toward the sky. Lyanna raised her hawk, its wings beating restlessly. Sarah's hand went to her sword. Even Duran, still on the ground, hardened his expression. The screams came seconds later. Dark, inhuman, unnatural. Alden looked up, and there they were. A swarm of black creatures descended from the clouds like a living storm. Twisted humanoid forms with bat-like wings, claws on hands and feet, hollow eyes and gaping mouths that screamed as if tearing the night itself apart. Dozens, dozens of them. A plague of living shadow. King Duran rose slowly, hammer still in hand. "Varogs," he said, his voice weighted with a gravity none had ever heard from him before. And the sky darkened over Tharzul.